Tonight, a deeply personal family dispute playing out on a very public stage.
Back to the Beckhams, officially at war.
Brooklyn Beckham has broken his silence on his ongoing feud with his parents, David and Victoria.
Making it clear he doesn't want to reconcile with his family following their fallout.
For 25 years, the Beckhams were the blueprint for the perfect golden family here in the UK. So just for you Americans here who might be watching, the Beckhams are like royalty in the UK. They're kind of like our Brangelina before that all obviously went down a cliff. The Beckhams consist of David Beckham, the football player, Victoria Beckham, Posh Spice from the Spice Girls, and their 4 children. A billion-dollar brand built by untouchable loyalty. But today, that brand isn't just cracked, it's shattered. Brooklyn Peltz Beckham, their eldest son, just did the absolute unthinkable and aired their laundry out on Instagram. Not just that, it seems like he's basically publicly disowned them. No more subtle snubs, no more scheduling conflicts. He's calling out the manipulation and lies. And so while Westminster is in an absolute frenzy because MPs are defecting to reform left, right and centre, the rest of the UK is focused on something very different. We are hooked to our phones and we're all asking the same question. Post the video of Victoria Beckham throwing it back on her son on his wedding day. For those of you who maybe aren't as chronically online as some of us, I thought we'd take it back to the origins of this conflict. And of course, every war has its beginning, which most people will think is April 2022, the $4 million wedding to heiress Nicola Peltz. However, to really understand why Brooklyn Beckham is feeling so suffocated, we have to look at brand Beckham in general and go back a little bit further. Long before Nicola entered the frame, Brooklyn's love life was on display for the world to see. And looking at what he said this week, maybe it was already being managed by his family. One of the most explosive claims of his 5-part Instagram story is that his family continuously invited women from his past into their lives for disruption and clearly with like malice intent. So while this is all speculation and this is all alleged, let's take a look at who these women might be and why it seems Victoria Posh Spice might prefer these women over Nicola. First, there was Chloe Grace Moretz, which some people always seem to forget, which is crazy to me because I was all over that. I was obsessed with Chloe Grace Moretz growing up. So when she started dating Brooklyn Beckham, I was all over that. Not necessarily because I was interested in the Beckhams, but more so I wanted to know who she was dating. I believe they dated from 2014 to 2018 and it was seen as kind of the safe, wholesome relationship. Chloe was a massive movie star at the time herself already, but she also raved about Victoria Beckham.
She's an amazing person. I really admire her work ethic and I think that she, I love her, honestly, I love her line.
Yeah.
And I think that as a family, they're awesome people.
Yeah. And so if you look at pictures from that time, you could see why to the Beckhams this maybe felt like a more comfortable, safe relationship and not a potential PR nightmare. She wasn't an heiress to a dynasty herself. She was a movie actress who was maybe happy to keep to the script of the family. Now, I'm by no means hence saying that their relationship was just PR or just all scripted. I think they genuinely really liked each other. They dated for a long time. But you can see why the Beckhams maybe had less of an issue with this relationship. And then came model Hannah Cross in 2019, which is when we start seeing some cracks form. This definitely was not a polished romance. We all watched in horror as we saw the screaming match unfold at the Cannes Film Festival, which actually required security to step in. Not a good sign usually of a healthy, loving, nice relationship. At the time, reportedly David and Victoria were frustrated at the public response of what was unfolding in front of them. But the real kicker is that reports from that time and Brooklyn's recent claims suggest that David and Victoria asked her to sign an NDA. Brooklyn allegedly refused to make her sign it at the time, seeing it as an insulting move by his parents. And it seems like maybe that was the first time that Brooklyn started prioritizing girlfriends over his family. And I don't mean that, by the way, in a negative way of like, oh, he suddenly doesn't care about his family, it's all about his girlfriends. When stuff like this happens that I could never imagine, right? I've never been in a situation where someone I dated had to sign an NDA. I think we can't comment as much about the response you would have to a situation like that. I can only imagine how frustrated I would be if that was happening. So I don't see it as like oh, he's just a child, he's prioritizing a girlfriend. I see it as him standing up for what he believed was right, whether that's correct or not. Brooklyn now, however, alleges that even after finding happiness with Nicola, his parents are still trying to ruin the peace that he's found with her. Apparently by weaponizing these exes. Now, we haven't heard who these exes might be. I really want to know though, because I highly doubt it's Chloe Grace Moretz. She's happily married, she's got a wife, she's doing her thing. But I also really can't see it being Hannah, which then only leaves Chloe. Maybe because Chloe spoke highly of them, they still are in contact with her from time to time. And it's more of like, when parents make a passing comment of like, oh yeah, I saw Chloe at the grocery store recently. She's doing so well, she says hi, la 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 la. Obviously for the Beckhams, it wouldn't be the grocery store, but wherever wherever it is that celebrities run into each other. Red carpets, Oscars, Grammys. So we can't speculate too much, but I'm interested to see what you think. Who are these exes that they're trying to weaponize? Anyway, by the time the wedding planning started in 2022, Brooklyn wasn't just the groom. He was a guy who felt like his parents were trying to bribe him into signing the rights of his own name away. And so our stage is set, not for a celebration, but for an exit. For years, the Beckhams played some of these disastrous rumors about the wedding off as scheduling conflicts or a misunderstanding. But Brooklyn's recent six-part Instagram story tells a different story. And it seems like he's viewing that whole process as a direct hit to his now wife. We all remember Dressgate. We were all there. If you weren't there, let me tell you what happened. The official story is that Victoria's atelier just simply couldn't make the dress in time. But Brooklyn has now suggested that Victoria cancelled the design of the dress like weeks before the wedding was going to take place. I don't think he's given like an actual time frame. We can only assume it's somewhere between a few days and weeks before the wedding because it caused an entire frenzy, which wouldn't really happen if it was like a year before. I'm sure Nicola has designers like throwing themselves at her to wear their design. According to his statement, Victoria promised to handle the gown and then went radio silent, leaving Nicola to fly to Rome for a Valentino couture piece. Now, we've all had worse issues. I'm sure there are brides out in the world whose dress doesn't work out like a week or two before the wedding and can't fly to Rome for a couture piece. So I do feel more for you than I feel for her. That being said, there were a lot of eyes on the wedding dress she was going to wear. Everyone wanted to know. So I can imagine the added pressure of wanting that to be perfect and be right. On top of the rumors that were already circulating that Victoria and Nicola weren't getting along, I can see the importance behind Victoria creating this dress for Nicola, trying to like settle some of those rumors and show a united front. So really, if this is what happened, Victoria would have shot herself in the foot with this. So there is some nuance here, and I think there's definitely a part of the story that we're missing. Unfortunately, I don't think Victoria's ever going to come out and tell us her side of the story. Anyway, Brooklyn claims that this was very much a power move by his mum, and it was basically done to show Nicola exactly where she stood in the brand Beckham hierarchy. And now we get to my favorite part, the part that's trending all over TikTok. Brooklyn claims that his first dance that was planned for him and Nicola was interrupted by Victoria. And so when Mark Anthony, a Beckham loyalist, called for the dance, Victoria apparently got up, went to the dance floor, and threw it back on her son. Brooklyn's words were very much that she was hijacking the moment and dancing inappropriately on him in front of 500 guests, and he'd never felt more uncomfortable in his life. Obviously, if this is what happened, I very much feel for him, but I also can't help but laugh at the TikToks of Victoria as Posh Spice barely moving during some of their music videos and concerts. So how she would be throwing it back, I don't know, but she is a very funny person. From the clips I've seen of her, she is really funny, and I do think Posh Spice obviously was like a character. So who knows, maybe she's got those moves, but in the meantime, I am thoroughly enjoying all of the TikToks and the posts that are being made about this. But of course, that doesn't take away from his experience of the situation. Someone who's already experiencing a lot of anxiety, I can imagine is not really enjoying this. Recently, an interview was done with, I think, someone at the wedding, or I'm not really sure, but they were saying that basically it was Mark Anthony that pulled this stunt and asked Victoria to come up rather than Nicola, so that it wasn't really a malicious move made by Victoria, but by Mark Anthony. However, in opposition to that, a lot of people are saying if that happened to you as a mother, you would be like, no. And you would call Nicola to the front to have a first dance with her now husband. So who knows? Then he claims something that I think is really dark and really shit if it's real. Brooklyn alleges that the night before the wedding, some family members, allegedly the inner circle of the Beckham family, told him point blank that Nicola is not blood, nor family. And that feels like it goes way beyond just like a mother-in-law tiff with a bride that she doesn't really like. And it very much paints this picture that they were treating Nicola as an intruder to the family the entire time and have a very severe view of what family is and what it needs to be to uphold this image. And so he says he spent the morning of the wedding dealing with Nicola's tears rather than celebration and excitement for the future. And I think that that's the foundation for what I've coined Brexit. We slowly watch the Beckhams more and more splinter away. This image that they had, there were cracks starting to form. But we have to remember the Beckhams are really loved in the UK, and they had a documentary come out, which I know there were some really funny moments in that. It's been memeified as well. So they're still really good at upholding the image that they've crafted for themselves. However, there seemed to be a more systemic deletion of Brooklyn from the family dynamic and from the brand. It's May 2025 and David Beckham turns 50. In the celebrity world, and especially the world of brand Beckham, that would be a huge celebration, right? So they throw huge parties, you expect to see everyone there. Just like when the Kardashians throw a family party, you expect to see lots of people there, except Kendall maybe because she never shows up to anything, but you know what I mean. Instead, however, it was more of a source for more rumors to start circulating. Nicola and Brooklyn seem to be the only ones missing from this star-studded party that was thrown for David. In his Instagram post, Brooklyn claims that he did try to attend and they flew all the way over, but apparently there was an ultimatum and he was only able to attend the party if he basically agreed to being filmed by loads of cameras and it basically turning into a PR thing. So instead they tried to meet privately, but again here the condition was that Nicola was not allowed to join. It was going to be just David and his son Brooklyn, maybe also his wife and other siblings, I don't know, but definitely not Nicola. I would agree with Brooklyn and call that a slap in the face. And if it's true, what it would suggest is that they care more about having the perfect photo up and rebuilding the brand of Beckham than actually solving the deep-rooted issues that are currently happening in the family. We also have to expect other people putting boundaries in place, and if someone really is uncomfortable with Nicola around, they are allowed to say, I don't want to celebrate my birthday with this person. I do think that's fair, but it becomes hard when it's family dynamics and it's people that are married into the family and it's not just like a friend or a girlfriend or boyfriend. And then of course we have to talk about the issues around the trademarking of the name Brooklyn Beckham. If you don't know, Victoria has famously trademarked the names of all of her children. Is it to protect the brand? Is it for future financial opportunities? I don't know. I've never thought about trademarking my name, maybe I should start. Brooklyn alleges that his parents forced him to sign a deal before the wedding that would essentially give brand Beckham control over his and Nicola's commercial ventures. But he refused to sign, which obviously would cause a drift between his parents and him. This is why you shouldn't work with your family. And this is why I will never be jealous of people that are part of a huge family dynasty. It sounds so complicated. No thank you. So Brooklyn officially changes his name to Brooklyn Peltz Beckham, and you could see this as him staging a corporate coup against his mother's business empire. Now we're quickly going back to December 2025. It's a cold winter's day. For days, the tabloids have screamed that David and Victoria have unfollowed Brooklyn Beckham. But the truth seemed to be pettier. Cruz Beckham, which is one of Brooklyn's brothers, actually broke the news on his Instagram story that his parents would never unfollow their son. Instead, they were blocked by him. And Brooklyn seems to confirm this in his Instagram post this January. He claims to have blocked his parents and his family because he was sick and tired of the performative likes and social media aspect of their dynamic. He also claims actually that his brothers were sent to attack him by his family before eventually also blocking him. And so the Beckham family group chat has officially been deleted. Now, to put the final nail in the coffin, Brooklyn and Nicola actually renewed their vows on their own in August of 2025. The Beckhams weren't just absent, it seems they weren't invited. Nicola wore her mother's vintage gown and her father actually officiated the ceremony. Brooklyn says that they did this to override the shitty experience they had on their actual wedding and wanted to build memories that weren't filled with tears and anxiety, but really were the celebration of their love, and it seems that the Beckham family just couldn't be a part of that because they were the source of his anxiety. He does actively say that since leaving his family behind, he's finally felt more calm in his life, which if that is the case, good on him. He wouldn't be the first who has had to leave toxic family behind to find some peace and inner calm. Even in families that aren't as messy or difficult as the Beckham family, it's very normal to take some time away sometimes. The response to Brooklyn's Instagram manifesto hasn't just really been celebrity gossip. It's become a full-scale cultural debate here in the UK. On the one side, you have Team Posh loyalists who think she could do no wrong and she definitely wouldn't be throwing it back on her son. On the other, you have Brexit supporters, maybe people who've gone through similar situations and see that what he's saying makes sense. It feels like a classic case of breaking free from a narcissistic family, which I'm not saying they are a narcissistic family, but I also don't think they're a normal family and there's absolutely no potential narcissism. And so we have to look at both sides of the coin. Let's be real, in the UK, Victoria Beckham is basically like secular royalty. For a generation that grew up with the Spice Spice Girls. I mean, I grew up with the Spice Girls and I wasn't even living in England at the time. I was in Holland in like our attic listening to Spice World. But she represented hard work and a don't complain attitude, and she's always been kind of mysterious, like does she smile, does she not? But we also know she's really funny and witty, and she seems genuine, or at least it always felt like David made her more genuine and more real. And so many find the claims that she threw it back on Brooklyn very difficult to believe. They point to her years of UNICEF work and her public support for her children as proof that maybe something else is happening here. Maybe there's a bit of exaggeration, but again, does that invalidate how someone felt in the moment? Maybe not. And of course, we know plenty of celebrities who are really, really good at doing charity work, but are actually shitty people in the background. Always have to remember we don't know these people. Let's not be too parasocial about it. And then, of course, we have a huge group of people who don't think that Brooklyn is speaking his truth at all. They see a 26-year-old who's being fed lines by his billionaire in-laws. It's the classic she's controlling him, which I truly believe just stems from misogyny. So I personally am not paying too much attention to that. I don't think it deserves the attention. Only thing I will think about is the fact that they actively say they want peace and quiet, and some people are saying, do you get that from this massive exploding 6-page Instagram post? Probably not, but I can also see how someone just wants to put their truth out there and then that's it, and then they don't have to talk about it again. And now we talk about the other side of the coin, which is a bunch of people thinking that, you know what, I've felt like this sometimes. I've had to set boundaries with people, whether it's family or friends. I see what he's saying, I relate to what he's saying. And so they look at the evidence, the NDAs, the trademarking of the names, and it's all starting to fit together a little bit into a puzzle. And so we have to ask the question, is it actually possible to have a real close relationship within a family where you're seen as maybe more of a commercial asset? And so when Brooklyn claims that his overwhelming anxiety was part of the reason why he chose to leave, I think that rings true for a lot of people. I think we're in an era where going no contact is seen as more empowering than as a shitty move. We talk a lot about setting boundaries, we talk a lot about mental health, and so I think a lot of people do see the truth in some of this. And again, I think there's 3 sides to a story: your side, their side, and the truth in the middle somewhere. I don't think that everything he's saying is probably exactly true how it happened, but I also don't think that it's completely false and none of this happened. You know when your anxiety is at an all-time high and things just really get to you. And so if in that moment someone decides to make a little joke that hits on some of that anxiety, even if there was no ill intent behind it, it just hits wrong and it's like your breaking point. Maybe something like this happened here as well. It wouldn't surprise me. And then of course I have to talk about something that I just can't ignore, which is the comparison of this situation with Harry and Meghan. In both cases, you've got sons from high-stakes British families marrying a wealthy American woman. And suddenly he realizes his upbringing was toxic. I think the suddenly is a bit patronizing. Harry has been vocal about how he's felt unseen by his family and it wasn't the best place to grow up in even before Meghan. Brooklyn has been less vocal, but that doesn't surprise me. He was very young and it's still a different dynamic in the Beckham family than it is the royal family of the country. But just like with Harry, the UK seems to be mostly siding with the institution or the Beckham family. I don't really know what it's like on the American social media side of things. I don't know whether you guys over there are seeing more people side with Nicola or Meghan, or whether it's the same. The tabloids here are brutal, like brutal. There's a reason Harry sued the absolute living shits out of the Daily Mail. And so I think ultimately at the moment, the UK's reaction can be summed up as follows. We'll forgive David for his tax avoidance and we'll forgive Victoria Beckham for her £500 t-shirts. But it seems we won't forgive Brooklyn for making us choose between 90s icons and a guy who thinks he invented the grilled cheese. But whether you believe him or not, it seems the Golden family brand image is faltering or maybe already dead. I've interwoven my personal opinion throughout this video. Like I said, I think there's truth on both sides. I think it's bad to look at this very black or white. I don't think it's good to look at things like they're black and white. Everyone has their flaws. Was it maybe a bit cringy that Brooklyn thinks he's a chef? Yeah, but do I like seeing someone who's clearly got passion for something doing that? Yeah. Do I think all of his recipes look great? No. I'm not gonna hate him for it, and I also definitely don't think it makes his statements about his parents any less valid. I think those are very separate situations. I think it's good to look at things with a little bit of nuance, you know? Something that a lot of people seem to struggle with. Anyway, what do you think? Where do you stand on all of this? Are you able to see both sides of the story, or are you very much siding with one side? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next dimension.